Delta programming generally is a form of assassination or a form of getting information through physical means. Yes. So this is it's sort of your basic military attack programming. That's what that is. That's Delta. Beta programming is used 80%, usually 80%, which is Monarch, 80% of women, and there are 20% of men which are used, which is also sexual programming. So giving and receiving information through sexual means. So a spy would be able to go meet up with somebody, have sex with them, and then download the information that was necessary from the person to collect it into their cells, then go back to whoever you are working for, have sex with this person, and then download the information to this person. So it is all done through that means.
Now, how do they do the download?
How do they do it?
When you say download, you sort of look at somebody's eyes.
Okay, so as soon as the sexual act is done, then the two energy fields of the people merge. And if you are shown or trained in a specific way, most often unconsciously, then this information is then downloaded to the energy field of that person. And then you can be hooked up to a machine, or you can have sex with somebody else, and then that person gets the information. It's being done a lot by the Russians. They're sending out 13, 14, 15-year-old girls out into certain areas in the US and the UK, and sex acts will be done with high businessmen, and the information then will be taken and given back to where the KGB, if that exists. You know what I mean?
That's just true that...
well, I don't know that movie as well. I know They Live, and in the movie They Live, and in They Live, there is a sound, there is a frequency, I don't know if you remember it towards the end, that Roddy Piper goes to, and it's a frequency that's being beamed out, which enables these aliens to look in human form. And when he breaks this frequency, then they're all seen. Yeah, I've noticed since we've changed to digital now, my senses have become extremely heightened, and even when I'm just listening to the TV, or even when you turn the volume down, I hear this sound frequency coming from the television that completely messes with my pineal gland.
Now this is important because another member of the base's back room, so to speak,
right.
The thing is that he had devised a device to encrypt records on CDs so that it wouldn't be able to be copied. Right. But it was a type of acoustic thing as opposed to some kind of digital trademark encryption. Right. And when he played this in the record executive and the board, a number of the board just freaked out because they were reptilian. So he
completely freaked out, I'm sure, yeah.
So there's a particular sound
that they cannot stand, yes. Because it alters the holographic projection that they're keeping. And I think it's a misconception that they are actually shape-shifting. Some are, but it's a misconception. Yeah. What they're actually doing is altering your visual cortex to make you think you're seeing them that way.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
And this is very important as well, you know, because you can that's the truth. They're not actually looking that way. They've just manipulated your mind to think that they are.
And that must work through all kind of visual media. Otherwise, you'd see a lot of these aliens walking around on TV.
Absolutely, yeah. Just after when Heath Ledger died, and Heath Ledger, who played the Joker in Batman. He died on January the 22nd, which is interesting because the number 22 is in sync with the Joker card and the Fool card in the tarot card deck. And so there was, you know, there's all the...
and being a Joker and all that.
Absolutely, yes.
So you're suggesting that basically the Batman movies has got some kind of ritual magic involved?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Is this painful to remember?
It's because it's so because it doesn't fit into the timeline of what I thought my life was. It's sort of very confusing. It doesn't make sense. Who allowed that to happen? Why was that okay? Where were my parents at the time? When I fell asleep again, there was two officers, not what seemed like Nazi officers, standing either side of me. And
what uniforms did they have?
They had the old World War II uniforms, from what I can understand, the stereotypical Nazi World War II uniforms, and they were standing either side of me. And they had told me that what's going on right now is that there have been 100-year war battles for the last 1,000 years, and at the turn of every century these wars are won or lost, and each time, and that he said that this particular faction had been winning for time after time after time after time. They said they set up all of the Formula One wins, all the World Cup wins were all set up to show how much in power they are.
Yeah.
Okay, and
it's interesting that a lot of horse racing things seem to have magical logos on them.
Yes.
In horse racing.
Yeah, and it's basically a ritual every time. But they showed me the seals over where they'd won. So they were gold seals, one on top of the other, on top of the other. And they said that the final battle is now happening now, and that they were already in a position to win. And they were thanking me. And I said, well, look, I don't know. I haven't done anything. I don't know anything about it. And they said, because you don't remember yet. Then I crashed out of sleep again. I haven't ever talked about this, Miles. I crashed out of sleep again. Then there was a thing. It looked like a gargoyle, but it was as big as this room and had black wings, like bat wings. Picked me up like this, pulled me back away from the earth like that. So I saw the earth like this. There were rings around the earth, different colored rings around the earth. And this thing pointed out each one of these was thought prisons, were a thought prison. And he said, it doesn't matter which one of the people on this planet get caught up. It doesn't matter which thought prison they get caught up in, whether it's Scientology, whether it's Christianity, whether it's atheism, it doesn't make any difference. As long as you are magnetically drawn to one of them, we have you. And he explained how all the thought prisons were layered around the planet. And he explained how they were made, and
how were they made?
They were made with the will of the creator beings that want to keep this place together.
So that is the will of the Archon, or what? Is her name, or does it make any difference if there's a name?
This particular group, I feel the ones who I was talking to were connected to the Alpha Draconis star system. And I do believe that the Aldebaran group and that the Alpha Draconis group are at war. And I believe that it's been an ongoing war for eons and eons and eons. And the Aldebaran group, which is the bullseye, which in the Taurus constellation, where you see the left red eye, that's why you have this symbol all the time. It's an acknowledgement to the Aldebaran people. It's called a royal star. All of the British royal family are directly connected to the Aldebaran group. When you're talking bad or good or evil, or it's a little difficult at that point, because I think it's perspective of the person. You know, what is bad or good when it comes to that. I think they feel what they're doing is good.
Well, since they're not actually human, it's from a human perspective.
Exactly. The sun, Helios, is the entrance point to get into this 3D realm here. So they're using that as a vortex in-out point.
Now that's the significance of the 39 steps, but also Saturn. I think you'd mentioned earlier that Saturn was our original sun.
Well, Saturn was the original sun, yes. Yeah. And Saturn, yes. And Saturn got pushed out. It was, in truth, a more efficient sun and a better sun. But then they caught that sun and imprisoned it. The ring around the sun, the ring around Saturn, is an imprisonment. It's imprisoned. Saturn isn't bad. Saturn is another word for where they take Satan from, because it's the controlling force. It's Capricorn.
But is this related to the ring makers of Saturn?
Yes, and Lord of the Rings, and the principle is that. So the ring, one ring to rule them all, would be the ring that is around Saturn.
Which is, of course, was a key thing in 2001 and all.
Yes. So there were no planes that hit the building. They were holograms.
Why do you switch to that?
Because I was just thinking about 2001, and they were just testing Project Bluebeam out as far as they could. There wasn't even a missile. It was a...
Well, what was Project Bluebeam? There's an awful lot of stuff about Project Bluebeam.
Project Bluebeam originally, I think they've been trying to do it for a while, because Michael Talbot wrote that fantastic book, The Holographic Universe, and it gives absolute proof that what this particular frequency we're living in is totally holographic, and you can build here through will. If you want to build something, you use your will. If you know what you're doing, you can manifest it that way. That's holographic. Now, what they've been doing for a while is going to Iraq, which is actually Sumer. There is information and ornaments and the spoken word, because when they say the spoken word, it just means a certain frequency, which is the frequency that holds this together. They were attacking to go to the museums to find that out. Yes, absolutely. And there are only a few people who know how to go there and translate actually what is going on. And obviously they call it Babylon or Sumer, and they say that's the cradle of civilization. It obviously isn't. It's the cradle of what we know as the known timeline we have now. So
there's a Masonic connection with this alleged crash at Roswell?
Yes.
A ritual. There always is, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, even what I really was looking at for the longest time is the Priory of Sion, and I think that if you can really break down what's going on with the Priory of Sion, you can have a very good idea about, okay, so the Holy Grail is not a literal object. The Spear of Destiny is not a literal object. These are symbolic of, the Spear of Destiny is symbolic of a phallus, and the Holy Grail is symbolic of a vagina. So,
what's the point of the symbolism there? Really, why this great symbolism?
Because those beings,
what's the big deal?
Those beings communicate in that way. They don't communicate in the linear way. Everything that they do is done through their language is symbol. They speak through symbols. Even as hieroglyphs, they're symbols. That's how they communicate. It's a much more efficient way of getting across information than using the Western alphabet, which is crap. A separate one. I think what happened is when we were being used for, they were testing out how far they could push the trauma, because when certain sex rituals are done to a child under 5 years old, when a child is raped, and when a male child is raped, what happens is it releases the coiled serpent, or the kundalini, which is at the base of the spine, and it is opened up before it should be. Everybody has the kundalini raise at some point, maybe not everybody, but right. So it means coiled serpent, and it sits at the base of the spine, and when the serpent uncoils, it goes up the spinal column like this and comes to the brain stem there, and you come to an enlightened understanding. So you become an enlightened one, or the Illuminati, the illuminated one. When a male child is raped before the age of 5, it goes through something called the vasovagal shock. Now, when it's penetrated, the coiled snake uncoils very, very quickly, all the way up the spine to the top of the spine, and explodes here in the brainstem, which then shatters the consciousness into many, many pieces, like smashing a mirror. Then,
so all this ritual all this kind of abuse that's been happening with many politicians, allegedly, a lot of stuff coming forward now about British political parties, British media, British thing and all that. There's a huge amount of stuff coming out now. Is that all part of that? You
cannot be in a high-level person in the Illuminati unless you have been illuminated by the Key of Solomon. Now they call this rape, rape like that to a young boy the Key of Solomon. and when that happens, when it bursts up here, it shatters. Then you are able to program these different alters. But not only that, when it shatters there, you have a photographic memory. Somehow it raises the IQ. It does a number of different things. Everybody who is in a position of power now has had the Key of Solomon used on them, so they have been raped in that way. Just off sidetrack, Barack Obama, his middle name is Hussein. Well, Saddam Hussein was a major handler and programmer. He was such a high programmer that he would program some of our very high power position people through world leaders. And Saddam Hussein programmed Barack Obama with that way. That's why he has.
Do you know any others he programmed?
No, but I know that him and Hillary Clinton worked as a duo to do that. No, I don't. I mean,
Hillary Clinton.
Bill Clinton was programmed by Saddam Hussein too. All the Rhodes Scholars, all of the Rhodes Scholars have to be illuminated, have to have that done to them.
Why an Arab like Saddam Hussein?
Well, he had technology. He had hold of technology. He had hold of Stargate technology. That's one of the reasons why he was at one point he was one of the most powerful men on the planet. And the technology that he had was off the charts.
Now this is very similar to what John Irwin has said in his book, One Step Beyond the 16.
Yes, yeah.
Amongst other things.
Yes, he had that. It's sort of similar to there's a movie called Contact, and that spinning thing there which is able to shoot you through to different dimensions. So he had something similar to that. There's a few of them around, but he had control of that. There was 100,000-year war, and a lot of us were involved in this 100,000-year war. And while this was going on,
between who?
Between who? Okay, well, so the basis of it was between the Lyrans, or the Nordics, and the Dracos, because the Dracos are chasing the Nordics around because they want their DNA, because that allows them to maintain the holographic projection of a human being whilst they're here. So the 100,000, this was a long war. Eventually, at the end of it, what happened was that they had to call a ceasefire because so many were killed on either side. But there was a disease that got out, a virus that got out during this war. And a lot of us who were very involved in what was going on, generals, commanders who were up there, contracted this virus.
I mean, it seems it must have been created.
It was created virus, yeah, and a lot of us contracted this virus, and what this virus was, some of us took it on board, took it and merged it, superimposed it into our own physical body to try and overcome it. And then now a lot of us still have it. I have it in me still now.
What does it do?
Well, it's vampirical. It's sort of like it's like a stereotypical vampire.
So what does that mean? You shapeshift and your teeth go long and you bite people at night?
It means that, well, yeah, but only somebody who was able to see or sensitive to that would be able to see it. It's not as if I would change now into a monster like that. So if you're sensitive, you can see it.
What is the true shape then?
Of this particular one? Well, from this particular vampirical virus, they tend to look, this vampire sort of thing looks a bit like that old stereotypical vision of Nosferatu. Very, very pale skin, bald head, sort of dark eyes and sharp teeth, like that.
From the original movie?
Yes, like that. Looks sort of like
original silent movies?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and it has the ability. It doesn't have a core here. It doesn't have a central core where it maintains itself. It sort of has an opening here, like a void. So it doesn't maintain its own thing. So it doesn't maintain its own energy force. It has to take from others to maintain its holographic projection. And a number of us were infected by this particular virus that happened there.
Now why is that going to be a thing that would cause harm to people? What's the point?
Well, because it becomes like a parasite, and then it starts to spread. and more and more and more. So it's like a parasitic virus that's on the face of this planet.
So how does it spread? By contact? Blood?
Yeah, well, when you start, I mean, when you drain somebody else, you sort of, there's never really a drain. When it comes to vampires, they don't just take. There is a exchange. So they will take energy field or blood from another, but then they will exchange it with their own energy. So that's why a lot of the times victims of a vampire will start falling in love with the vampire, quote unquote vampire, because they will feel the feelings that the vampire feels.
Yeah.
And so they'll.
I mean, I have to say that seems very similar to two people that I know, two women I know.
So that it becomes like a bond like you can't even ever explain, an obsessive bond. And then what I think is they're very careful about is, but if you completely drain them, then their personality is wiped, and then they become one of them. So then the void is within them, and then they have to continue to take from others to maintain. I mean, it's a construct. The moon is a construct in and of itself. It's like the Death Star is a construct anyway.
So when you're talking about the moon being a complete artificial construct.
Yeah, and it definitely is. It's hollow and it's an artificial construct. Yeah.
Any other information you know about it?
Well, they're using the moon as a transfer point to harvest. Yeah. So
it's interesting. John Lear says something like that.
When you're dying here, when you quote unquote die, you are going to a transfer point, and there's actually a machine. There's actually a giant machine up there, which then they do a lot of rituals up there as well, which then wipes. Who is it? Well, the majority of the moon is now run by the Fourth Reich, but there are.
So are you saying that spoof movie
is actually quite right on? Yeah. They always like to tell you the truth with a spin of bullshit in the middle, but and then you're sent right back.
It's got enough of an atmosphere for people to walk around with very minimal.
Yeah. Yes. And huge underground stations and high technology and. So what you've got the Saturn as we have now with the ring around it, projecting out a false reality pockets. False reality. It hits the moon, and the moon is working like an amplifier, which then creates and projects the false reality onto this planet. So we're living an inverted reality here. It's not how it doesn't.
What do you mean by an inverted reality?
Well, an inverted reality in the sense that you succeed by doing bad. You succeed by fucking over, excuse my language, you succeed by screwing over your fellow man. If that's if you want to go along with that. I don't care if you succeed. I'd rather not succeed and be okay and take care of people I love. So whether or not it's success is not, I'm not interested in that. What I'm trying to do is change the frequency here so that ceases to exist anymore. Right, well, you've got under Dulce, you've got the 7 levels under Dulce, where Nightmare Hall, which I think is the 6th level, where they've just put everything you could possibly imagine together, testing out things. That's not ever going to happen again. This will never ever happen again.
Why?
Trapping souls, because universal law now is not allowing it. It's gone too far.
I get the impression from other sources that what's been going on is so illegal.
It's so illegal. It's being stopped. A lot of these ones out in Arizona and Nevada now have been stopped, and because you've got people souls trapped in machines, where they cannot stop, keep coming back and back again for torturous lifetime after torturous lifetime. And this has been over and over again. And and people, you talk about, well, okay, well then you want to leave. How are you going to leave here? Kill yourself. You kill yourself, you're not leaving. You're in even more trouble. So we're all now trying to find out how we get out of this prison without walls. What do? We look inside and understand we have to look inside ourselves and understand what's going on. Because really, all of this stuff is just a reflection of what we think about ourselves. because these things are, we're talking about the Goetia demons, the high Goetia demons that were locked away for a long time.
And why are they called the high Goetia demons?
Well, you know, in the 72 Goetia demons are ranked sort of similar to our aristocracy here. They have dukes and princes and kings and like that. And Crowley wanted to release them here, and the 9/11 ritual released a lot of them like that, because they want to create hell on earth. They want to create, well, hell is not the word they use, but they want to create the lower fourth into 3D here, because they like that. That's what they like.
Basically, demonology, what does it really mean? These are other types of dimensional entities?
Yeah.
They've got their own worlds to live in?
They don't. They're just off this frequency. They're in pockets, they're in a pocket just off this frequency. But they were locked down a long time ago because they caused such havoc and mayhem. The dark sorcerers...
Is this what you referred to earlier as going to oblivion, but you can recover?
The void, you mean? Yeah, they were locked in the void. In Superman 2, the original one, not the crap remake, you see Jor-El locked in these 3 particular demons in this thing like this, and they were locked away. Well, that's symbolic of a lot of these Goetia demons being locked down. Now, when you use Goetia magic, each one represents a different thing, maybe for money, maybe for food, maybe for power. So if you know what you're doing, it's necromancy. If you know how to, necromancy is about the summoning and raising of these particular things. You can summon them.
Jimmy Savile's stuff?
Yes, he was actually very, very high up.
Well, he obviously must be, because of the clearance he obviously got.
Yeah, very high clearance.
Which is a big alarm bell for the whole echelons again. You know,
absolutely. But you can summon these, and if you do what you're supposed to do, if you do what they say, and you know, they'll do you favors. And
that's at a cost.
Oh yeah, in the end it's at a cost. Yeah, you're selling your soul. And they'll have you after.
Yeah, and that means short-term gain, long-term loss.
You can even have what seems like long-term. You can have a lifetime gain. But
but after that,
you're always going to lose somebody close to you, because they always want somebody. They always want to take something from you that's close to your heart.
What happens to those people who are taken?
Well, they're dealing with going to the underworld, or whatever you want to call that, lower fourth, until they can capture enough energy to re-get into a new body again. They're about staying here. They don't want to go anywhere else or raise vibration. They want to stay here. So they're fighting to get back into a body again and do the same thing again.
Which is why we got all this thing, cyborgs, you know, be able to have machines which last.
Yeah.
You know, well past the human lifestyle.
Yeah. But there's a way of doing it where you can rebuild the flesh and blood again as well. You don't even have to have cyborgs. You can do it with, especially with the cold-blooded, like the reptilian cold-blooded. It's much easier to build the building blocks of them than it is the mammals.
Well, that's interesting. That one of the things that Casbolt mentioned was the certain people in charge of certain agencies had lived a long time.
Yeah. Yes.
So, you know, like 100 years plus.
Yes.
More.
Way more. Yeah. Absolutely. And that's a lot to do with it's the blood. It's being able to. You can just change your blood again, or you can take somebody else's blood and maintain youth, keep maintaining youth. But what they're desperately after is the Holy Grail, which is which is the Priory of Sion, protected for the longest time. You can get hold of that. That's eternal life. But the Holy Grail is really blood. It's blood from a certain stream.
I mean, the Ark of the Covenant.
That's a different thing. Yes.
Gold holds the souls.
Yes, and gold is soul energy. Yes.
Gold is soul energy.
Yes. The more gold you have, the more soul energy you've got.
Right.
That's why they're obsessed with it.
It's very interesting. Somebody I know recently had a lot of really yellow gold, really good pure gold.
Really?
Yeah.